Hello and welcome back to the channel. You're here with the Lone Wolf. In today's video, I'd like to go through an article that I recently saw on Coach Greg Adams' channel. Shout out to him. And it's in the New York Times from yesterday. It's an opinion piece called "The Married Will Soon Be the Minority." So we'll go through this piece and then look at maybe some of the reasons why. When I was young, everything in society seemed to aim one toward marriage. It was the expectation. It was the inevitability. You would and should meet someone, get married and start a family. It was the way it had always been and always would be. But even then, the share of people who were married was already falling. The year I was born, 1970, the percentage of Americans between the ages of 25 and 50 who had never married was just 9%. By the time I became an adult, that number was approaching 20%. Some people were delaying marriage, but others were forgoing it altogether. This trend has only continued, and we are now nearing a milestone. This month, the Pew Research Center published an analysis of census data showing that in 2019, the share of American adults who were neither married nor living with a partner had risen to 38%. And while that group includes some adults who were previously married, those who are separated, divorced or widowed, all of the growth in the unpartnered population since 1990 has come from a rise in the number who have never been married. This came on the heels of data released by the National Center for Health Statistics last year, which showed that marriage rates in 2018 had reached a record low. We are nearing a time when there will be more unmarried adults in the United States than married ones, a development with enormous consequences for how we define family and adulthood in general, as well as how we structure taxation and benefits. If they bring out a bachelor tax. Of course, the unmarried and unpartnered portions of the population vary among demographic groups. As Pew pointed out, among those ages 25 to 54, 59% of black adults were unpartnered in 2019. This is higher than the shares among Hispanic 38%, white 33%, and Asian 29% adults. For most racial and ethnic groups, men are more likely than women to be unpartnered. The exception is among black adults, where women, 62%, are more likely to be unpartnered than men, 55%. As a society, we have to start asking ourselves whether it is fair and right to continue to reward and encourage marriage through taxation and policy when fewer people, disproportionately black ones, are choosing marriage or finding acceptable partnerships. Is marriage always the ideal, and should single people pay a loner tax, part of what the Atlantic's Lisa Arnold and Christina Campbell in 2013 called Institutionalized singlism, for not pursuing it? In 2013, when Arnold and Campbell were completing their analysis, they found that over a lifetime, unmarried people can pay upward of $1 million more than their married counterparts for healthcare, taxes and more. I have been married, I no longer am. I do not see remarriage in my future. It is not an ambition I possess, and I see nothing wrong with that. But I am also keenly aware of the nudging of those around me who are married or aspire to be, and who falsely assume that an eventual marriage is the only way to be truly happy and whole, to have completed the checklist of life. I rebuke all of that. To each his or her own, I say, and that includes the happily single and happily partnered people who don't want to marry. There is clearly a case to be made when children are involved that they benefit from more parenting and more money. This doesn't necessarily mean marriage, but it often does. As the Brookings Institution explained in 2014, children raised by married parents do better at school, develop stronger cognitive and non-cognitive skills, are more likely to go to college, earn more, and are more likely to go on to form stable marriages themselves. Using our own benchmarks of success at different life stages, developed as part of the Brookings Social Genome Model, now partnership with the Urban Institute and Child Trends, we find similar patterns. But what of the adults who have no children or whose children are now adults? Paul Dolan, a behavioural scientist at the London School of Economics, says that while men in the aggregate could benefit from marriage because it calms them down and makes them take fewer risks, read makes them less masculine, women again in the aggregate don't receive the same benefits. On the contrary, according to Dolan, the happiest subgroup is women who never marry or have children. I don't believe that for a minute. This, of course, could be debated until we are all blue in the face. There are plenty of responsible men who don't need a wedding ring as an anchor, and there are plenty of married mothers who would argue that their families are the lights of their lives. But the point remains, marriage as the prevailing ideal is losing its grip, and the stigma of being unmarried is also losing its grip, as it should. Now government policy that rewards the married while punishing the single must also loosen up. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy, but I mean, if you're going to have kids, then you probably should get married, just to protect the family unit and protect the child. As the article just said, kids tend to do better when they're in a marriage framework. But there's absolutely no reason for men to get married in this day and age. Absolutely not. And we're going to have a look at another piece on the topic. I mean, I did the video a few months ago now about why men in the West shouldn't get married, and I also did one about men in the UK as well. I still haven't heard a coherent argument as to why a man should get married in this present environment. And check out this piece on tesh.com. Top reasons why men don't want to get married. It's a short article, but really illustrates the point that I'm making. So they want the kids, the house, and the intimacy that goes along with being married, but according to new research, a lot of young men just don't want the wife. Here's the scoop from MSN.com. For a study called The State of Our Unions, men between the ages of 25 and 33 were surveyed to find out whether they wanted to commit themselves to a serious relationship, and if not, why not. Most didn't, and here are the top reasons they gave for clinging to their single status. First, they want to own a house before they get a wife. Men want to be financially set before they marry, and for a lot of guys, this means buying a home before an engagement ring. Yeah, and I mean, engagement rings, wedding rings, it's a huge amount of expense just to get a blood diamond, right? Next, the social pressures to marry just aren't there anymore. Today's young men don't face the same traditional pressures past generations did, from religion to pressure to have grandkids or needing a wife to look responsible to employers. Most men in the study said their parents are willing to help support them and even allow them to move back home until they're ready to marry. Another reason young men are reluctant to commit, they fear marriage will require too many changes and compromises. A lot of men savour their freedom to enjoy hobbies, late nights out with the boys, and even the freedom from extra financial burdens. They think marriage will cramp their style and gouge their bank account. They're not wrong. They're right to be fearful of this. Also, men want to wait until they're older to have children. Women have to worry about their biological clocks, but men don't. Yeah, we are all aware of this, and that's just a fact of life at the moment, unless they come out with some miracle biological scientific technology to arrest the fact. One last reason men don't marry. They want to avoid divorce and its financial risks. Men feel that their financial assets are better protected if they simply live with a woman rather than marry her, and they're correct. They fear an ex-wife will want to take all their money if they end up getting divorced. They might not even want to, but their lawyers will tell them to. They'll gouge you out. Despite all those reasons men want to stay single, statistics show that 90% of all people will get married at some point in their lives. I don't believe that either. Not a chance in hell that's true. The comments will be amusing, I would imagine. In a reality, says Rob, where there is huge risk for men, why take the risk if the reward is unlikely to pay off? In an amicable split, the man still loses his kids. Shared parenting usually means the man may see his kids a third of the month, and that pre-assumes the ex abides by the distance requirements as set forth in the parenting agreement. Financially, the man loses half and pays child support, where there is zero accountability in how and where the money is spent. This usually results in a man spending upwards of $200,000 in child support or more. Alimony is still routinely issued by the family court system for many men, essentially giving the woman thousands of dollars a month for her to spend as she sees fit. Yeah, there's no police, right, making sure that she spends the money on the children. Young men are often the byproducts of a family destroyed by divorce. Nearly 80% of divorces are initiated by women. We're all familiar with these statistics. Of those, 75% of the time the man is unaware that his spouse has quit on the marriage. As a man, why would you ever subject yourself to this? It's not worth the risk, and many young men recognise this and are simply opting out. They're going lone wolf. If a young man can make enough money to get by and pursue his hobbies, then some are choosing to not place any real emphasis on career and instead are pursuing their passions and hobbies in lieu of high-paying, career-oriented vocations. I frankly don't blame them. Well said, Rob. I so loved and wanted to be married, and the complete family man was everything I thought until I really got married. And if I knew what I know now, I would never get married. I have everything before I got married, and after getting married for a couple of years, she cheated behind my back with a police officer, and my heart and dream of a family and future collapsed entirely. The corrupted, evil lawyers who become evil, biased judges literally tore my life as a man, and my children completely apart, causing pain I can't describe into words. I lost my home, my business, and every cent I've ever worked for and thrown to the streets. Marriage is all about money, and the girls know it, and the courts are behind them. It is a lawyer-made business. 12 years later, and still the pain is horrific and a nightmare. The court system is a business. The reason they take children away from fathers is because most fathers will fight until they have no more money to get their children back, and that's how they make their living. They can't take the children away. Yeah, exactly. They make money out of the suffering of men. Pretty much. If you look at the prevalent statistics, they're basically making money out of people suffering. The inequity of our courts is probably the number one reason why men don't want marriage, or in some cases even dating anyone. Women don't bring enough to the table to offset the risk. 80% of divorce cases filed by the woman, blah, blah, blah. Half of all married couples end up divorced sooner or later. Why would a man want to even speak to a woman under those conditions? Even a stable relationship isn't enough. There are plenty of professional girls out there who they can go to, absolutely, or women willing to give them a one-night stand, or they can just learn to live without. So why should they commit to a relationship with a woman who would destroy them financially or possibly even land them in jail? The point above about men wanting to wait for children is patently false. Men want children, but they don't want to be the only man at their son or daughter's high school graduation collecting social security. They want them when they are younger. It is the women who are waiting longer because they choose college and a career over marriage and starting family. By the time they get established to where they feel comfortable enough to get married and start a family, the men aren't there anymore. They either got married a long time ago and are settled with someone, or else they had a bad experience or two and aren't interested in women anymore. So you get a bunch of 35 to 45-year-old career women looking to get married, and the men are either unavailable or want nothing to do with them. They've learned to be happy on their own and are now devoted to looking out for number one. Marriage couldn't be further from their minds. An older man will also be in his prime earning years, so he will not have the time or the energy for children. He'll be making as much as he can before he gets too old to work and spending it however he pleases without a woman and children around putting demands on his time and money. He can indulge his interests and buy all the toys he wants, hang out with his friends whenever he wants to with no cares and no responsibilities. What does a woman actually have that makes him give up all that freedom? To which this woman responds, Trina, who can give them a one-night stand? The reason you aren't in a loving, stable relationship is because you see and treat women like objects. Men who can't understand a woman's worth and hold these limited beliefs won't attract the attention of a woman that knows her worth in a marriage. Instead, good men and good women that respect each other marry and stay with each other because they understand the depth of their commitment and love for each other. I'm sorry you didn't grow up in a family or culture that taught you that. Well, you've just completely ignored all the statistics, haven't you? You're coming from a position of pure emotion, feels, and not actually looking at the stats. The stats don't hold up against that logic in any way, in any objective fashion. Men look at things from an objective position, risk-reward mentality. And if they've got any brains, they go with the option with the highest return for the least risk. Women in more cases than not are favoured in the court system. Women preach equality and don't practice it. You don't see a feminist movement to make the court system equal. Want to know why? They want the benefits of being equal but not the responsibility. So again, all of these ideas that we see going around in this space, they're just getting more and more widespread and more prominent, okay? And it's good to see. It's good to see a lot more logic coming out, a lot more reasoned and rational thought. Trina, if you've been reading any of these comments or have any life experience, a woman's worth is at zero when she destroys the family she creates and wants nothing but money. So in my opinion, he's correct. Most women are completely worthless and most women are completely worthless and they are objects. Okay, again, bit extreme, but yeah, if you're going to destroy your family and tear it apart, then you deserve everything you get. Right, that's why women divorce 90% of the time in 70% of divorces. Men do not want to get married because it's economically ridiculous to sign up for something that only has a 30% chance of being successful. Why go through the hassle of losing everything to a wife who's just taking full advantage of the system? I'm going to leave it there, guys. So you can see that mainstream media pieces are coming out saying that people who are married are going to be in the minority in the years to come. And again, more and more people are going lone wolf. They really are, especially in the West. And there are just a few of the reasons why. And again, I'll link to my previous video on the topic where I get into a bit more detail. But yeah, don't get married. It's a very, very irrational decision given the present political and governmental climate. Thanks for listening as always. I'll catch you next time.